He's going to be quiet in a minute, Willow. Him, not you, darling, because of well, you'll have to be because I'm on the road. I'm on the.
Hello, Dan.
Hello, Vivian. How are you? Oh, look, we really should phone each other and talk to each other before we come out dressed similar.
This is an homage to Nick Mulae, our guest tonight.
There's a cryptid in front of you, Viv.
I know. The Johnny Puss has to get involved. Just a quick notice before we continue any further. I need to wish Solaris Blue Raven a very, very happy birthday. And I want to wish Richard Case a get well soon. He hasn't been very well. And so I hope you get well fast. Basically.
Yes. Best wishes to you, Richard, and hope for a fast recovery. And happy birthday to Raven. Hope you had a good one. Is it today, Viv, right? Or is it?
It's today.
Oh, well, I hope you're having a great birthday. So, blimey, we're early, as are two people in the feed. There's two people watching now, so that's good. And one is our Jamie. Hello, Jamie. Hope you're good.
Right. I'm going to add Nick in now. He's a very special guest. He's a wonderful person. Please be kind to him. We won't.
I won't.
I'm only joking, Nick. Gonna add him in now.
He's a lovely man. Hiya, Nick. How are you?
I'm doing great. How about you guys?
Very good, thank you. Very good. Very good. Not bad at all. What have you been up to? Anything interesting? I know you've noticed you've done quite a few. You've done quite a few paracons.
Yeah, I've been kind of all over the place, if you will. I gotta say, it's definitely great to finally be back. To be going out to places, going out to cons, because it's just been way too long. So it's definitely a great feeling.
Excellent. It must be paracon season in your neck of the woods.
It kind of is. It usually starts around this time of the year.
Excellent. Right. So obviously you need no introduction because most of the guys know you. But just for those that don't, could you give a little potted history of who you are and what you do? If that's possible, because you do a lot of stuff.
As always, of course. Well, obviously, even though a lot of people know this already, I'm a paranormal investigator. I've been a paranormal investigator now for almost over 17 years now, since I was 12.
Wow.
And yes, hard to believe that. So, as typical, I've investigated like a lot of different haunted locations, and I've documented a lot of them. I've been making a lot of case files, if you will. And of course, now within the last 2 years, I've also been part of a couple of paranormal podcast shows. So I've been I've kind of been public all over the place.
Oh, that is excellent. That's wonderful. And what got you interested in the paranormal, Nick?
Well, you know how a lot of people always, for a lot of people who've gotten into it, usually it's because of an experience that they had when they were younger.
Yeah.
For me, it was actually a little bit different. It was more of curiosity, if you will. For starters, I mean, and part of the reason what got me into the paranormal was growing up, I was a huge fan of horror movies, obviously. So, it kind of did give that inspiration. In fact, when I was very young in the mid to late 90s. I'm still surprised my parents got to let us watch this, but we used to watch The X-Files, which, you know, at that time, you know, was still relatively brand new. So, you know, very paranormal themed.
Chantal.
Hey, what's up, Chantel? Good to see you. But fast forwarding a little bit, a few years later, around 2005, I just happened to be going through the channels at one point, and I came across the show on the Travel Channel, which this was like the dominant show before Ghost Adventures. I came across this show called Most Haunted. I'm like, well, that sounds actually really interesting. So I turned it on, you know, see what it was all about, and was like, as soon as I got into it, it's like I was just immediately drawn, and whatever paranormal shows that happened to come up next, I was just like, it got my attention immediately. And at that time, I was only like 12 years old. So you can kind of say this really marked the true beginning of how I got into the paranormal.
Wow, that is interesting. Yeah, because you're right. Because for a lot of us, I think it starts off in very early days when we haven't experienced as children. It seems to be the thing. That's the same with you, Viv, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah. I'm just watching Nick disappearing into the house.
Fix it up. There we go.
But the thing is, I love that, because later on tonight, you were doing a podcast, part 3 of the Amityville Horror. And can I just say, thank you so much for doing that, Nick, because they've absolutely captivated me, and they're absolutely brilliant. And if those that want to see it tonight, I don't know what it is UK time. It's not long after this show. I think it's about an hour or two after this show. If you go on the Things Network, you'll be able to catch that. And I recommend it to everyone. Please go over there and have a look and support Nick, because not that he needs your support, because he's going to do it anyway, but it is just amazing. Go and have a look at over there.
It is fantastic. I've watched it on catch up. It's brilliant. There's so much, because you really go in depth with a lot of your reports, don't you? And you seem to get up a lot of stuff that I'd never even heard of.
Yeah, and you know, to be honest with you guys, what made this entire case so important to me was the Amityville Horror, believe it or not, was actually my very first haunted house case. I studied again around that same time back in 2005, which, yes, understandably, that was the year when the remake of Amityville came out, which, you know, I know not too many people are crazy about compared to the original Amityville film. But when that came out, that's when they also re-released the original film along with some of the other sequels that came out. And it's like, my parents were nice enough to let me get those movies, even though they were R-rated. But, you know, as soon as I watched the films, it's like I just started doing homework, because I wanted to know really what really happened in that house.
She's naughty, isn't she? It wasn't just you.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? You get that one little thing that captures your interest, and then your thirst for knowledge just grows from that. And I think certainly for you, that's what makes you so good at what you do with the research and putting it together, because of the passion that you have for that particular subject. And even micro down to like individual hauntings, which is something you don't really get a lot from a lot of podcasters. And as I say, watching you, there's so much stuff that I never even didn't even know about, that you brought to the front and to the fore, and it just made it that much more engaging and interesting. It's like, never realised that. I didn't know that. That's unbelievable. Yeah. So it was good. It was great. It's brilliant. And as Viv says, you've got the third one tonight, haven't you?
Yeah, and you know, the other thing I got to point out about it too is, you know, I'm also telling the story of how, I mean, yes, part of it we now know wasn't fully true, but I thought this case I would be telling literally the entire story from beginning to end. You know, I mean, yes, adding some of the stuff that later turned out to be not true, but also more importantly, and this is what part 3 is going to be, you know, like what really happened, you know, in that house with with the other owners that lived there after the Lutz family moved out, you know, and what the kids now say about like what really happened there. So it's really going to give a great conclusion for the Amityville Horror. So I'm basically telling it in a way that's never been told before.
Mm. Is it one of those? Sorry, Viv.
Sorry. William says, seems a lot of ghosty people have turned to podcasts. And I think that if people like yourself, Nick, don't do these podcasts, they can't get the truth out there. So, the genuine ghosty people, he's calling ghosty people, I would call them researchers, that actually go and do their homework, then come onto these podcasts and they're able to get the word out. Because I think, isn't this the best platform on which to do it? Do you not think?
I definitely think so, because, if you look back, like, again, like when I first started studying this stuff at a young age, back in 2005, there were very few paranormal podcasts back then. So the only thing you could really rely on, of course, were the television shows that existed. So, and the chances of being on a paranormal show at that time, to tell your story of the truth, that was almost like a one in 1,000 chance. Now with all these podcasts, that number is literally decreased, and now it's just like, I would almost put it to like 1 in 30 chance now, because these paranormal podcast shows are just so common.
Yeah, I think the thing I like about them, the thing that intrigues me with them, interests me with them, is that unlike a lot of the TV stuff, and also unlike a lot of the stuff that you find on YouTube, is that the podcasts have credibility and truth. They're telling you the facts, or they're telling you what's happened regarding any particular haunting at any particular time. Whereas when you're watching people running around professing to be investigating, but the same token, most of it you can see is just complete and utter balderdash. It's just rubbish.
Exactly. Yes.
But it's interesting.
It really is.
It is. It's brilliant. But have you got any questions there, Viv? I'm going to throw some questions in, I think.
Yeah. Chantel says, I think all the groups I'm on, all the people I know, is because of Nick. He does bring people together. I'll vouch for that. If it wasn't for Nick, me and Dan wouldn't be on the Things Network.
No.
So Jamie wants to know, is there any black-eyed children, either where you're from or around the Amityville house? I'm not sure what he's saying, but
yeah, I looked at his question. I wasn't completely sure what he was asking. What I could say already, for Amityville, no, there were never any black-eyed kids as far as I'm concerned. But in typical of our area, no, we've never really had them, because from what I've heard on a lot of occasions with black-eyed kids, or BEKs as they're sometimes known for short, is they're often usually spotted, like in abandoned, isolated locations. So, I think like me, I live in a neighborhood, so the chances of having black-eyed kids would be very, very slim.
I've got a question.
Go for it.
Right, so I'm just completely flipping the subject on its head, because I'm going back to my hat. Have you seen Bigfoot, or is there any Bigfoot around your area? I recently went to Cliff Barrickman's museum and got a cast of a hand, which I'm really proud of. And I also bought a hat. Dan's got his hat.
Yeah, you got me one as well. Look, I'll put it on for.
That's awesome. I gotta say, that's awesome. And
because we know that you're very into your cryptids. So have you seen Bigfoot? And could you give us any tips on how we could go about squatching? Because we haven't got the foggiest here in England. We're useless.
No.
Well, surprisingly, I actually haven't had an encounter with Bigfoot yet, though that doesn't mean that, well, we do actually have, believe it or not, our own version of Bigfoot here in Illinois. Because, there's a popular misconception that Bigfoot is usually only spotted in the Pacific Northwestern areas. That's true. That's like where the most sightings occur, California, Oregon, Washington State, Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, and Alaska, and British Columbia. But there's actually a lot more sightings than you think throughout the entire country. And we don't really have too many sightings here in Northern Illinois. I think it's more of Southern Illinois that we get the reports. And do you guys remember a while back, last time I told you guys about that one cryptid that we had called the Enfield Horror? Remember?
Yes.
There was actually I should have told you guys about this one, but 2 months after that occurred, there were sightings of a Bigfoot-like creature that occurred in Murfreesboro, Illinois, which is just like an hour, I think, from Enfield. And it became known as the Murfreesboro Mud Monster, or the Big Muddy Monster. Part of the reason why, yes, it had a very muddy appearance, but we actually do have a river called the Big Muddy River, which runs just outside of Murfreesboro. It's a tributary to the Mississippi River. And in the early 70s, as well as up to the late 1980s, there was a sighting of this large Bigfoot-like creature. However, the difference was, compared to most Bigfoot sightings, was, yes, its appearance, it was about 7 to 9 feet tall, weighed about 400 to 500 pounds. But instead of having the typical dark fur like most of them had, it actually had white fur instead. It was constantly covered with mud. So it had a brownish appearance, but it was actually white in color. It also had, glowing red eyes. Most people can never really see its face because it was covered in mud all the time, but they sometimes did see yellow teeth. That was the only other thing other than the glowing eyes they saw. So you could very well say it seemed to be some type of, Bigfoot, a swamp monster, or a skunk ape type creature. So that was, and unlike most Bigfoot reports, this creature seemed to show it usually was in an aggressive situation, and it became a major vocal point for a lot of the studies.
Yeah, that's intriguing, isn't it?
I love that.
That's intriguing. We've got any more questions there, Viv?
Yeah, I better go back because I was listening to Nick. Sorry, I wasn't.
No, you're right.
I wasn't concentrating. Sorry.
I see Williams put which is quite an interesting. That's a good point, actually.
Show it. There we go.
Yeah, I think for me, William, it's the fact that with podcasts, you've got a general potted history, or a general overall history of the things that they're talking about. And the people that are on there haven't got anything to prove. Like people that are doing it on YouTube and stuff like that, they want to get their likes, they want to get their subs, and so they're quite happy to go out there and, if you like, fabricate some of the evidence that I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of them tend to fabricate the evidence, and it's pretty easy to see when the evidence has been fabricated, because generally it's just continual and it's too good to be true, a lot of it.
Nick doesn't do that. Nick does a lot of work.
And that's the thing about podcasts.
I tell the truth.
They don't do it on podcasts.
Yeah.
I mean, people may, come out with a whopper, but I think the worst thing you get on a podcast is if you've got somebody on there talking about a subject that or the situation they found themselves in, they might, blow it out of proportion slightly, but I find that's generally about it.
What do you think about that, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, as I've said, I always make sure that, I always tell the truth. However, at the same time, though, I mean, you're going to have your mistakes sometimes, like because there are times where you hear one version of the story or you have some kind of evidence. And for many years, you always thought this was how everybody heard it. So you kind of buy into the story. And then there was always that one case, because I have ran into a few of those mistakes myself. Like years later, whoever got this evidence or whatever would eventually come forward and say, to be honest with you guys, this is not real. This is fake. And once I find the truth, I find out about it. It's just like, I get kind of edgy, if you will, but at the same time, at least I become honest immediately, saying, okay, what I showed you guys before, that was not true. So we're just going to focus on we're just going to focus on whatever else is actually true instead of that. We just won't come back to that subject again. Or if I do bring it up, I'll say, I'll talk about it, but then say this later turned out to be fake or whatever.
Yeah. So Spell says she agrees with Chantel. Ratings depend on content and celebrities and assume that ratings means evidence, whereas most true followers would be happy to see a show where nothing happens, and that's the truth.
Yeah.
Belle went to the cemetery where Mothman was meant to be, but she didn't see anything. Okay. Lois, hello, my beautiful
Hi, Lois.
Hey, what's up, Lois?
She's lovely, Lois is. Jamie asks, what's your favourite investigation you've done or haunting?
Oh, man, I've had a couple of them, but I think perhaps one of my favorite, it's a location we got here in Illinois. It's called, I'm sure you guys have heard of this one, Joliet Correctional Center.
Yes.
Yes. It's located it's only about an hour away from me. And
wow.
Yeah, and believe it or not, and I don't know who's seen the Ghost Adventures episode that was there, but they claimed that they were the first investigators to ever be there. That is actually not true. We were actually the first real investigators to be there, because they started doing the ghost and history tours at Joliet, starting out, of course, couldn't have been at a better time in October of 2018. So almost 4 years ago. And because I was helping out with them, I was able to get pretty much free access into the prison. That place, from the first night I was there, I loved it. It's definitely a place well worth to investigate. And believe it or not, we actually might be getting back into that prison real soon because I don't want to say too much publicly because I don't want to confirm anything just yet. But there's a chance that we might be getting some of the ghost tours back.
That'd be cool.
In fact, one of the guys that might be doing it is Dave Schrader from the Holzer Files. He along with a few others are possibly gonna plan this out during the summer. And we told them, because we said we were only an hour away, saying, if you guys need help with any of these, we'd be more than happy to do so. But like I said, the activity there at times, it's insane.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the sort of places you want, though, aren't they?
It really is.
It's just finding it like a holy grail.
To me, it is, because it's just because when you think about, we have a lot of haunted locations here in Chicago. If you look at like Chicago, basically, you can kind of say the most haunted city in Illinois. Joliet is kind of like the next step. This is like the second most haunted location because it's not even just the prison itself. There's a few other historic structures that have a lot of activity, which unfortunately I haven't been able to investigate yet, but they've been on my list for a while. So I will be getting out there real soon.
Oh, that'll be cool. Yeah. So evidence-wise, whilst we're on the subject of evidence, what's the best bit of activity or evidence that you've discovered or come across or had happened to you, or,
Well, the best evidence I've ever gotten, this was actually something that occurred last year. This was with Jeremy York, believe it or not. So, this was at the Crown Point Jail, which is just out in Crown Point, Indiana. And we were, I don't know if this is still going on, but we were actually working on putting together kind of like a paranormal series for the Things Network. I was helping me along with a friend of mine. We were helping him out. We were just doing camera work, and fortunately, I got a night vision camera that really does work great in the dark. And the goal was we would have different paranormal teams come in, almost like a round table, if you will.
Yeah.
So one of the first nights that we were there, we had the first group come in. They did their investigation. We were filming. And this is unusual because a lot of times whenever you look back at evidence, usually it's after you're done with the investigation. You don't normally see this occur when this is all in progress. But as I'm filming the investigators, all of a sudden there's this huge black shadow that just like comes down from the ceiling, and I'm seeing it through the monitor. And at first I was skeptical at first. I thought, well, maybe I just happened to step into an area because the windows were behind us. It was nighttime, but because it was in the town area, there were a number of lights still going on. So I moved back at first thinking if it was my shadow, but it was still there. Then I tried moving a different position to try to get rid of the shadow, but it still kept staying. And the weirdest thing was this shadow literally was like hovering over the investigators' faces. And yes, some people would say if they saw the footage saying, how come I didn't move up? I did briefly move the camera up to the ceiling, and you could still see the shadow is just coming down. It was just a black mass. And
wow.
I'm thinking, okay, there's something weird going on here. And it's like maybe another minute or so that it was just still there. And I kind of walk backwards to my friend who was the other camera operator. I'm like, are you getting this? I'm like whispering to him, and he said he's not getting on his camera. It's only affecting mine.
And, wow.
Yeah, and you could hear me clearly on the tape, on the video. I was sort of saying, dude, there's this shadow like hovering, like something like that. I'm like, it's hovering right over him. It was there for probably about a full minute and a half. Then it moved back up the ceiling, and I'm just like baffled, like, what the hell did I just capture?
Yeah.
If that wasn't enough, it gets better. All of a sudden, it actually comes back down and does the same thing. It covers the investigators' faces, and but unlike the first time it did it, it was only there for maybe 20 seconds or so, and then it moved back up the ceiling, and it was gone. And I finally moved the camera up just to see if it was again a shadow issue, but there was nothing there. And when I turned around, I realized that where I was standing, I mean, yes, we had the windows, but I was not standing in front of the windows anymore. And whatever lights were there was no way anybody could have blocked it. I mean, these lights, they were too high up on the building. So it was like the strangest piece of evidence I've ever captured.
And was that evidence that's been recorded there before, or?
Oh yeah, we later spoke to the owner of the jail, and she told me they've had black masses there previously. So it's appeared in photographs, it's appeared in videos. So for her, she was not surprised. So
Right.
I mean, as usual, she tried to debunk them before, but when these black masses kept showing up, it's like she didn't know how else to explain it. So seeing that kind of black mass to appear on our camera, she wasn't surprised, but we sure were though. So it was incredible.
It's great. It's not just once, but twice. It's done that for you. So
that's
almost
brilliant.
like it was looking for attention. That's probably the best way I could say it. And it's even weirder how it only occurred on my camera. It didn't happen to my friend's camera, just mine.
You could call that ghost the attention seeker.
Yeah,
you could.
We got a question.
It'd be interesting to find out what different frame rates you were recording at.
Yeah.
Let's see if there's any difference. Oh, okay, that's a good one, Jamie.
Jamie
what is
says
in your kit bag, Nick, when you go on investigations?
Well, I'm not going to open it, but I actually have it right here.
There you go.
I got the whole gear practically. I got a lot of the typical stuff. A lot of the things I typically do use on investigations, and I know a lot of investigators like using this a lot too, is I prefer a lot of the older tools. Like
you, Dan.
Yep, dowsing rods, crystal, pendulum. But even some of the newer stuff, has been kind of helpful out. I mean, I got a K2, I got an EMF, I got a digital recorder. And I don't know if you guys know this, because I actually learned this from Jeremy, believe it or not. But one of the best tools, apparently, in his opinion, is the use of a dog whistle.
Dan was saying that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Jeremy, funny, isn't it? I was talking about that the other day, weren't I?
Yeah.
But why?
Does he get reactions from it then?
Because, like, when you use a dog whistle, because, like when you blow it, a lot of times you can't really hear the noise itself. It's like a white noise type of device, obviously made for dogs. It's like, because it's like white noise, that means just because we can't hear it
doesn't mean that nobody. Yeah,
the entities could still probably hear it.
Oh,
that's interesting, isn't it?
So I've used it a few times, and it seems I'll say aggravating for lack of a better term, but it definitely increases some of the activity we've had there.
That's interesting. So I met a ghost hunter. Go on, Viv, sorry.
We've gone from cat balls to dog whistles now.
Yeah.
Dog whistles. I was going to say, I knew an investigator years ago, and he said that the thing that he used for investigating, and he said he always had good results with it, but he felt that it was he felt a bit guilty using it. Because he said that when he started up, the energies used to go mad, and that was a strobe light that was continually banging away.
Oh, is that
so
right?
He'd have that going. Obviously, you can't because of epilepsy and people,
But you could use a red one.
Red one, yeah. But he had this strobe light going, and he said it used to drive him mad. He said he always got activity with this strobe light banging on and off. And I thought, well, it's like anything like torture, isn't it?
It probably would. I wouldn't be
probably torturing him. Yeah, exactly. He did feel guilty. He said, but he wanted the evidence, and I thought, okay.
Right, we got a question.
Oh, excellent.
Belle wants to know, Nick, what's your thoughts on mobile phone apps?
Good question, Belle.
So honestly, I mean, I'm not too crazy on a lot of the phone apps. In my opinion, there's only just a few that I think are actually legit, and because I have my phone right here are the ones that to me do work. The rest of them I ignore. I use the Echo Vox. I use the Spiritus, the Necrophonic, the Sono X10 Spirit Box, and the EVP shifter. which I could see probably the reason why I think they're a little bit more legit compared to the other ones is, first of all, I mean, yes, you have to pay for them because like the other apps, they just give you them for free, and you kind of think, well, do they really work? So with the exception of those 5 apps that I mentioned, all the other ones, I would probably just, if anyone has them, I would just say throw them the hell away because they don't work. There was one occasion, believe it or not, I'm sure you guys are familiar with that one app that was called the Ghost Radar. You guys remember that one?
Oh God, yeah, with the little blip come up on it. Yeah.
Yeah, there was one occasion where now 10 years ago, believe it or not, I was with a different team back then. I was we were investigating Bobby Mackey's music world in Wilder, Kentucky.
Oh, wow.
It's an all right place. You know, contrary to popular belief of that place, it was not demonic as they said before. I mean, maybe it was at one point, but while we were there, it wasn't. I mean, there was very little activity that occurred at Bobby Mackey's. I mean, honestly, the only thing that really occurred while we were there was right before we began the investigation. I mean, it was the month of either late July or August, so it was humid and it was hot in that building, and we felt this brief cold breeze that just went right past us. There's no, air conditioning, AC running, and it just felt like it moved right past us, and literally that was it. But later on that night, she wasn't really an investigator. She was just happened to be there with us. It was a friend of one of theirs that brought her with, and she was using the Ghost Radar, and she truly believed she was getting all these answers. And I just really wanted to step in and say, you're not really getting real responses, right? That's fake.
Oh, bless that.
Didn't want to shatter her illusions.
I just really wanted to say something. I'm like, I don't want to ruin it for you, but it's what you're hearing is not correct.
I've got a question from Wayne. Have you experienced something that you cannot 100% explain?
Well, I mean, I've had a number of encounters experiences like that. I'm trying to think of probably one of the best ones, but actually, you know what? Now one just came up in my head. This was one that not only myself, but actually 2 of them, not only myself, but several other people couldn't explain. Funny enough, it was around the same area of Bobby Mackey's. This was about 5 or 6 years ago now. We investigated this location called Siddamsville Rectory, which is out in kind of close to the Cincinnati, Ohio area. And that place, ironically enough, is just like maybe a half hour, 45 minutes away from Bobby Mackey's. It's right along the Ohio-Kentucky border. And the activity we got, I mean, again, it was pretty interesting, but I think the one thing that we couldn't explain was we had this, and this is going to sound crazy, we had this napkin that was with us. And just like any typical place, after we were finished, as we were leaving, the next morning after the investigation, we cleaned up everything. We had because we brought food in, for dinner for that night and whatnot. And we were trying to look for this particular napkin that was on the table that we were going to throw out. And as soon as we were about to, throw everything out, we could not find this napkin. It was just gone. And we literally searched the entire rectory for it. And I mean, we still don't know what happened. We still, to this day, have no idea what happened to this napkin. It was gone. We didn't know how to explain that, because one moment it was on the table. Next moment, it wasn't. We checked the floor first to see if it fell, and it wasn't there. It's somewhere in that rectory still.
It's going to crop up one day when you're on an investigation. It'll be on the table in front of you.
Yeah. Years later.
Later. Right. Have you got any more questions there, Viv?
No more questions, but I have one question.
Go for it.
And I'm sure people are going to love this question. And I know Nick is going to love this question. I want to talk about your waistcoat, or your vest, as you call it, over there. And I've noticed that it's got lots of patches and all sorts of goodies on there. Can you tell me where the idea came from for that? And Where do you get your patches from? Are you collecting them on the go, or is this that you've been doing this over years? Is it a new thing? Tell us about that vest.
So the vest actually came from an idea. I mean, it was an idea of my own that I came up with. It was, believe it or not, it was, I know it sounds like not the most perfect idea, but you can kind of see it has that biker kind of look to it. And, not necessarily paranormal, but what got the idea was I always admired a lot of the, motorcycle biker clubs vests, even the outlaw ones like the Hells Angels, the Outlaws, all those clubs, which I know they're not the most perfect groups, but the one thing I always admired was their patches, how colorful they were, and they, every time they did something, they got a particular patch, for what they did. And I kind of thought to myself, because I always see a lot of people come up with different ideas, fun ideas for, the paranormal field, whether it's clothing or, whatever. And I thought to myself, thinking, you know what? No one's ever made like a paranormal style vest or with patches or anything. So I went on Google one day and I just, simply typed in, to see if there was anything like this, paranormal style patches. And I came across this. I mean, at first I came across, just a couple of these patches, like, on Amazon or eBay. So, not all these patches are from the same company. But I came across this site that was called Monsterologist, and that grabbed my attention very quickly. And they had all these different paranormal and cryptid style patches, and I'm like, I think I found what I'm looking for here. So as soon as I discovered that, it's like over the next couple of weeks, I first bought myself a leather vest, and I started ordering all these patches and try to get as many as I could onto this vest. So, and of course, just like the real clubs, it does have rockers on the back, which that one I saved for last. This is what I would probably consider the main feature of the vest, is the back of it. Hopefully you guys can see it. I know it's
yes. Yes. That's amazing.
That's well known now. That jacket's well known, isn't it?
That is iconic. That vest is iconic.
It is iconic. Everybody knows it now. Everybody knows
exactly,
it anyway.
And it's become like my most prized possession. So anytime I usually never leave for any Paracons without it. So I feel like you just can't go without wearing something like this.
No, that's true.
And it doesn't. And for some people, because there have been a lot of people asking, saying, well, what paranormal team are you on to have that vest? It doesn't represent a team because you guys saw the rockers just said paranormal investigator on it. So this is the only one like this that exists as far as I know, which no one else has.
Have you got any space for any more? Because it looks like it's full. Are you starting on the inside now, or what's happening?
Well, I may actually have, believe it or not, just probably 2 more spaces. And believe it or not, one of the hosts on the Things Network gave me recently gave me a patch as a Christmas present. Hopefully you guys can see this, but she gave me this. Wait, hang on. Let me see if I can turn off.
That's cool. Bigfoot.
Yeah, hold on. Let me try to see if I can turn off the blur so you can see it more clearly. But it says, hope you guys can see it. There you go.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
You're gonna have to sew sleeves on, Nick. You got to sew some sleeves on it, so you got more room to put patches.
I may have to.
Just get a denim jacket underneath it, and then
that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. That's true.
Oh, I love that. But do you know what, Nick? I'm blaming you because I was recently over in Oregon for a conference, and I came across somebody who was selling patches. That Dan wants a particular patch that you have that we can't get. So while I was there, I thought I'll see if he wants any of these other patches, and he's going, I'll have that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. It's like nearly $80 later. I'm thinking, shit, how many more patches are you going to want? Sorry, I shouldn't have sworn then, but hang on. But yeah, the one patch that Dan wants is because of you. It's your fault, because I think it's on your jacket somewhere, and that is
that's
the
probably where
man.
I saw it, to be fair, in all honesty.
It's the Dogman patch that you've
Oh,
got.
the Dogman patch.
Yeah, that's a cool patch.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys. I got it right here actually. The red patch right here is as
That's
it says,
it.
Dogman Division.
That's
That's
it.
it.
That's the one. That's the one. That you could. I've seen them over here, and I thought, oh, well, that's not bad. They're like $12 or whatever. I thought I'll grab one of those, and then when I've gone in to buy it, the postage has come up, and the postage is like $60.
Yeah, I
And
know.
it's like,
just like the
whoa.
shipping. Yeah, I mean, when I started getting these patches, I mean, you look on the page and it says like maybe it was like originally $5 or so, and then when you actually order them, because you got to worry about the taxing, the shipping, whatever, and it makes it almost twice as expensive.
Yeah.
And that's what gets so frustrating. So like when I ordered these patches, like I realized I couldn't order from the website itself. I had because this guy was selling them also on I think he was selling on Etsy. So I had to order them through Etsy in exchange kind of like for a cheaper price.
Wow.
Although I will tell you this, because I was kind of a loyal customer for Monsterologist. I forgot more. So wait, here it is. See, sometimes I forget some of the patches that are
So many of them.
Yeah, there was this one right here. I don't know if you guys are going to see it. It has like a Cyclops look to it.
Right.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's actually the logo of the site. So because I was this loyal customer and I was able to purchase them, he was able to give me that one for free because
cool.
I bought so many of them. So it doesn't represent an actual cryptid. It's just the logo of the website.
Of the site itself. That's cool though.
Yeah.
Right. Got some more questions here.
Yes,
Hi,
we
Dave.
do. Are you participating in the campaign to save Waverly Hills, and how is that going? Do you know?
Definitely. That's been on my mind for a long time since this all started. I don't know if you guys remember, or wait, I think you guys might have participated in this a few weeks ago. We did that whole Save Waverly Hills Parathon. Were you guys part of that? Or
I didn't do it. No,
I didn't know it was. I'd have joined in if I'd have known, but I didn't know it was on.
I think I was traveling in the States at that point.
Oh, you would have been there, wouldn't you? I'd have thought.
Well, believe it or not, we are going to be having another Parathon like that real soon. We don't have a confirmed date just yet because Jeremy and the rest of the staff, as well as Ernie, Denise, Pack, we're still talking about it. We're still trying to find out a day that could work out for everybody. So we are going to do something like that again.
Oh, count us in then, please.
What are they? What is happening with Waverly Hills? For those that don't know, and they're going to knock it down. Is it what is it?
So it was a lot of information that they gave me, so I wasn't able to memorize too much, but I was able to memorize some of it. So Charles and Tina Mattingly, I'm sure you guys know they are the actual owners of Waverly Hills.
Own it, yeah.
You know, they've owned that place now for pretty much about 20 years now. So they've owned this place. I mean, and over the years, you know, everything that was fixed up at Waverly Hills Sanatorium, it was done by them. They rarely ever had a lot. I mean, they had people over the years that helped out, you know, to try to restore it, but it was just like, you know, it was usually just them. And plus they were kind of living there for a brief period, you know, on brief periods.
Mm-hmm.
But at one point over the course, you know, throughout all these investigations, there was this nonprofit organization that kind of just came over and see if Ernie and Denise were on, they would be able to tell them it better than I could. But practically, they just basically kicked Tina and Charlie out of the house. I mean, out of Waverly. They said they were taking it over, and it was like, from what I've heard, they're already turning parts of Waverly Hills into basically office buildings. Which when I heard that,
but they're not owners, though, are they?
They're not. Yeah, no, they're not the owners, but they practically are getting like all this money or whatever the case is, you know, and they pretty much have ownership of Waverly Hills, even though Charles and Tina, they're the actual owners of this. They were just booted out of this place, and they shut down most of the ghost tours and investigations. It's terrible right now. In fact, during the Parathon that we had a few weeks ago, we did have Charles on to talk about it, and he literally he literally told this story from beginning, almost like from beginning to end, of like when he bought it, how he bought it, what he did with it, and this whole nonprofit organization that's taken over. He couldn't really say too much because obviously this is still an ongoing
legal,
court
yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
he actually said, what he said was, he may have even already said too much. So, it's just an ongoing case. And if that's not enough, not only do they throw them out of the building, they also basically sent a lawsuit to them. And they showed us the lawsuit. If you go back at the parathon that we did, this lawsuit, literally, it is the size of a Bible. It is like this big. It's huge. I mean, it's like a huge binder of like everything involved in this lawsuit. So Charles and Tina Mattingly, along with Denise and Ernie Pack, who they're kind of like the secondary owners, if you will. They're the ones that lead the ghost tours and investigations. They've been in this constant battle, and we're just trying to get as many paranormal investigators, not even just people in the paranormal field itself. We're trying to get people who, are big into, whether they're fans of the paranormal or are historical fans, if they're just only in for the history, just, basically anybody who we could grab, or especially those who live in Louisville, Kentucky, because that's part of their history, whether they want to have, whether it's, they're involved in the paranormal or not. So it's just a constant battle. And most recently, I was at the very first Paracon I was at just a few weeks ago, which was here in Chicago. Denise and Ernie, they actually gave me a Pac-Man Paranormal shirt, which is their team shirt. And I was actually able to go around, talk with a number of the Chicago investigators to try to spread word and try to get as much support as we can. So we're just doing everything we can to try to save Waverly. The best thing these people could do right now is end this lawsuit, end this all, and walk away. And as soon as they walk away, they're going to ban them from ever coming back. But no, they just want to continue fighting. And we've told Charles that, he has a whole army behind him worldwide that is going to fight for him.
We'll all turn up with our banners and protest and get them in and out. And we could.
He must be heartbroken, mustn't he?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I can't. For someone who's lived there and basically refixed the place with the sweat of his own two hands, I can't even imagine how it is. And considering now that he's at an older age now, over the next couple of years, he may not be able to do it as much as he did 20 years ago. So that's why a lot of us in the paranormal community, whether we live in Louisville or not, we're kind of taking care of this place all together. And we're hoping that if we win this case, if I'm correct on this, that if we do win, there's basically obviously going to be like a huge Paranormal Nation party to celebrate, at Waverly Hills if we win this case.
Yeah. Definitely.
Right. Terry says a striking midnight patch is on its way to you, Nick.
Yeah, and when I get I'll get one someone to you as well, Terry.
Hey,
Kelly
Kelly
says, how are you?
Great.
And Jamie says, Nick, are you coming over to the UK? Have you done the Queen Mary in California?
Queen Mary, I haven't, for starters. That's been on my list for years. I've always wanted to. That one I've heard of, like, I can't even tell you how long I've heard of that place. And that was like, again, another place when I was younger. I was like thinking, that's a place I want to go to in just a few years.
Yeah.
But as far as coming to the UK, as of right now, I don't have any plans, but we are definitely working on it, though.
Watch this space. We'll talk to you about that after, Nick. But we
can't
say anything.
We need to have a word with you. Oh, Belle's got a good question, Viv.
Put it up.
If you could go to any location that you haven't done already, what would it be? Good question.
Yes.
That's a really good question. Yeah, there's a lot of them, but we got a few locations here that I definitely would like to check out. Believe it or not, there's one place we got here, which, believe it or not, is another prison we have here, which is just about, I'd say about 2 hours away. It's in the nearby town of Dwight, Illinois. We have a prison that's called the Dwight Correctional Center, and that closed down almost 10 years ago in 2013. At that time, it was the only women's prison we had here in the state of Illinois, and also housed
Night,
the.
Wayne.
Night,
Oh,
Wayne.
great seeing you, Wayne. Thanks. Good seeing you. So it was the only prison at that time that was for women, and was also the only death row for women until the death penalty was abolished in Illinois in 2011. And I think it was due to prison overcrowding, or or probably just due to conditions. They just could no longer operate the prison, so they closed it down. And it's like many of these places, it's just kind of been rotting to the present day. And while we never really have investigated, the only time that we've ever been at Dwight was we were able to approach the entrance area and just kind of scour the grounds. We got pictures of it from a few years ago, but now we came to the realization that we can no longer do that because there's a lot of security guards in that area. But just seeing the entire area just looked like it was a great area to investigate, because the prison was originally built back in the 30s.
Oh wow!
So it is a historic prison. They had a few of the you could kind of see the evidence of it. Although when you look at some of the buildings, although it was built in 1930, it still had like that kind of castle-like structure to it. Making it look like it was even older.
Impenetrable.
I would say it was built in 1930, yet it looked more like it was built in 1830. But I'm hoping one day that they do eventually open the doors for us to go in, because I definitely would like to check out Dwight. We were able to get to the entrance. That was a start, but I actually want to get inside the prison.
Which sounds like there's an untapped market there for them then, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, there was
really good.
Believe it or not, there was, and I just came across this a few days ago, there was a small group of people that did go to Dwight Correctional Center. I'm thinking, did this just recently happen? Because I don't remember seeing this on YouTube. It turned out that they were there like 5 years ago. That was when it was not as heavily guarded as it is now.
Oh, right.
So that's why they got in. Unfortunately, too, they got in through trespassing. So, which, of course, I don't do. Those guys basically got in without permission. So it's cool what they captured, but it wasn't the smart idea of getting into.
No.
Someone knocking on your door days later.
Yeah.
Right, Terry says, if you can invite 3 dead people to a Paracon, who would you invite?
Wow. That's
a good question, actually.
That's a really good question.
That's a good question. But some good ones tonight. That's great.
Well, there is one. I don't know if I could think of 3, but there is one that I could think of. Believe it or not, he was a paranormal investigator, was a good friend of ours. He came to a lot of our Paracons. There was, I don't know if you guys were ever friends with someone by the name of Christopher Sutton. He was the I think he was called the Coyote or Coyote Wolf, something like that. He did live here he lived in Illinois, but more southern Illinois. In addition to being an investigator, he was also a shaman, so he also had Native American heritage to him.
Oh, yeah.
Great guy. I mean, he was someone who I was very close with. In fact, you can kind of say he kind of treated me like I was a son in a way, because there were times whenever I saw him on a show like this, when he was on, he often was like, "Hey, that's my boy Nick." Something like that.
It's a bit like me and Chantel. Chantel's my paranormal
It's very much
daughter.
like you and Chantel.
Yeah, she's my daughter.
But in addition to coming out to Paracons, he also did appear in a few of the paranormal shows. I mean, he appeared on, of course, not surprisingly, he was on a Ghost Adventures episode. He was also on the Dead Files. I think he appeared on a few other television shows, but I think those were like his 2 main appearances. And unfortunately, though, he passed away last year. It wasn't COVID though. It was something else. I forgot what it was, but he was someone who was, deeply loved by the entire paranormal community. So going to these Paracons now, understandably, it's still, we always feel like we're going to have that expectation that he's going to be there, but knowing that he's passed away, it's sometimes just not the same when you have someone who, loved doing it just as much as what, we do, not being there anymore. So if I could invite him to these Paracons, he would definitely be one of them.
You got 2 more people to choose from. So it's Chris Sutton.
As for the other 2, oh man, I wish I could, if I knew about this question ahead of time, this would have given me some thinking.
Have you got any dead paranormal icons? Maybe anybody that any icons that you followed or watched on TV that are not with us anymore?
We did have another one I just thought of. Sadly, this was almost 10 years ago he passed away. This was another Chicago investigator. His name was Richard Crow. He hosted for well over 20, 30 years. He was one of the guys that ran one of the Chicago ghost tours before Ursula Bielski took over. And of course, she's not doing them anymore. So now it's being ran by a few others. But Richard was basically the guy that kind of directed all the locations we had here in Chicago that were haunted. Now, at that time, I didn't really have as much connection with him as I would have now. But by the time that I was starting to reach out to him, unfortunately, that was right around the time when he passed away. He was only like in his mid to late 60s, I think. He had a number of health problems, though. I mean, one thing for starters was he was somewhat overweight, so he wasn't someone who didn't really watch his health very often. But if he was still around 10 years later, I'm sure he would have probably gone out beyond the city limits of Chicago and start expanding like a lot of us now. So he would definitely be another person I would have loved to have seen some of these Paracons.
Right, so Kelly says, Dan, it's a shame my boyfriend doesn't have the pub no more because you could have done the investigation.
Oh, darn. Oh, well, never mind. I'm sure there's plenty of others out there, Kelly.
So,
tell him to take up the license of another haunted pub.
So, Nick, who are your heroes in the paranormal? If you could name just one person out of all your heroes, it's got to be a living person.
Yeah.
Who do you look up to? Who's that one person that really does inspire you?
See, it's not, man. It's like it's really not just one person. I think it's just a number of people, because that's how it's always been with me growing up. Because again, when I started getting into the subject, it wasn't just one show that got me into this subject. It was like, it was all the shows, it was everybody. And I will admit, I mean, when they first started, yes, I used to admire, of course, the Ghost Adventures team.
I still do. I love them.
Well, I mean, I'm just not as crazy with them as I was when they first started. I mean, when they were, in my opinion, a lot more professional, like when they first started, I think before Nick's departure. So they were kind of my role models until things kind of changed up.
Yeah.
But it's really a number of people, I think, that, that really inspired me to get, into the paranormal. One name in particular, I mean, not necessarily a paranormal investigator, but someone who definitely kind of delves into the subject is, like someone like Stephen King, for example, because, you look at, for example, The Shining, based on the Stanley Hotel. So Stephen King definitely served as an inspiration for me.
Yeah. Belle's just said, it's all about the tight cargo pants, Viv. Ha ha. She's talking about Zach Bagans' tight cargo pants.
Yeah.
You got to get some tight cargo pants. That's what it's about. Dan and Nick, you can start.
Yeah, I don't think anybody wants to see me in tight cargo pants, to be honest with you, Viv. I think they give me money to put trousers on instead of wearing tight cargo pants.
That's funny.
Jamie, teamwork makes the dream work, says Jamie.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, very true.
So, Dan, have you got any questions for Nick? Last couple of minutes. Nick, don't go anywhere when you finish.
I was waiting to see if anybody else had any questions. Terry says, who was the guy that ran the show Paranormal State? That was Ryan Buell, wasn't it?
Ryan Buell.
Yeah, I think it was. I still remember.
He did. He ended up with. Yes, he was ill, wasn't he? Bless him. Yeah, he was very ill.
I actually quite admire that guy for all his faults and what he did. He seems to have beat his addiction, and he's paid a price. He's been to prison, and he's back. It doesn't make what he's done right.
No. He was very ill as well, though, wasn't he?
He was very ill.
Yeah, he was.
He's come through the other side, and I have a lot of admiration for that guy.
All credit to him.
you know, I can't take that away from him.
No.
Yeah, when
No,
he
you
was
got to admire
running,
him. You must have had strength of character to pull it all
Yes.
back together again.
yeah, when he was running Paranormal State, I mean, again, another inspiration. I mean, that was during the time when I was, I was still in high school. So, that was a
Jamie.
No,
particularly.
Jamie.
Oh,
Oh,
take care,
sorry.
Jamie.
Jamie's going to bed.
That was during my years of high school when they first started running the show. So a lot of the kids that were into the same subject as I was, I mean, that was something that we often did talk about, because during my high school years, I don't think I've ever told you guys this before, but around the same time Paranormal State started, I actually started a paranormal club at my high school, which to this day, it is still running.
Oh,
Now,
wow.
almost 15 years later, because I started
Oh,
it back
wow.
in 2007. So 15 years later, it's still running to this day.
Have you still
Oh,
got a
that's a-
hand in it, or has it just been handed over to?
So when I graduated, it was handed to a friend of mine, who was still in school, and then she passed it off. So it switched different, owners, if you will. But I haven't really had very much of a chance of real. I've been wanting to go back ever since, just to see what the club is like, as well as coming on, as a coming as a guest. But it's just been it's really tough, because obviously, trying to even going back to my former high school, it's for certain events, it's not as easy going to them nowadays.
No.
The rules are much more stricter than what they were 15 years ago. Unfortunately,
Yes.
as much as I wish the rules could still stay the same, but we at this point we would have to message them to see if basically send a request.
The world's changed, doesn't it?
Sadly, yes. I wish it was.
It's sad as well. You're right. You're absolutely right.
I'll put a note in down there, Nick, of where they can find you. I don't know if you have a website or anything going, but I've directed them to Facebook and the Things Network on there. So if they want to contact you, they can do it through those pages.
Yeah, for the most part, I don't really have a website. It's just my personal Facebook page, and also the Things Network. But I also did recently start a new Facebook page, which I am going to start updating in just a few days. It's the audiobook series I told you guys about. Scary stories. Scary.
Do you want me
stories
to? Do you want me to
presented
redo mine?
I was going to talk to you about that actually after the show.
We've all done read a story in our own funny voices. I sound so weird, but yeah, that will be in Nick's book that he's audio book that he's bringing out. So that will be fun.
That'll be up on YouTube, so it'll be and all these audiobooks, because I know there's a number of them. Obviously, some you got to pay for. For these though, these are free. You don't have to pay anything at all for them, so they're free access for everybody.
Cool, excellent. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah. All right, I think we come to the end of the show.
I think we have.
But thank you ever so much, Nick, for coming on.
Yeah, thank you, Nick.
We've got so much more to ask you, so we want to get you back on the show. We'll throw some more dates at you when you're not so busy. We'll get you back on the show.
Definitely.
Because we need a part 2 of this, because it's just like having an old friend round. For
it is.
Chat,
it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
Absolutely. You guys know I'm always open for coming on. So
thanks, Terry.
You guys want me back in, I'm more than happy to do so.
Once a month for the next 3 years. Will that do?
Yeah. Contract in blood.
That. Yeah. We want it signed in blood.
Yeah.
Nick, it's been as always, it's a pleasure. And thank you so much for coming on, and it's been brilliant. Absolutely wonderful. And as Viv says, yeah, you must come back.
Yeah, so absolutely. Thank you guys, Nick, as always, again, so much.
Stay where you are, Nick.
It's absolutely my pleasure.
Don't go anywhere. So next week, join us on Tuesday on the Things Network, where we will be talking about crystals in the paranormal, and
of which I know nothing.
No, I don't either. So we've got some homework to do.
Got a lot of studying.
If you know anything about crystals of the paranormal, come in and join us and help us,
please. Bail us out.
But,
well, I can start off with if I can find it, good thing I have my toolbox right near me. I can at least show you the crystal I got.
that's it.
I won't have enough time to be able to get it out.
It's
But
coming on our show. It's coming on the show. Doesn't matter.
Yes, definitely.
And then next week we'll be back next Wednesday on Simply Spooky with another guest. I don't know who it is, but we'll put the posters out. You'll see. So we'll hope you can join us. So
Definitely. Thanks everybody for tuning in and joining us this evening. It's been great. Thanks for your good questions. They've been superb. Speak to you soon.
bye everyone.
Bye all.
see you later.